What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be diving into a Bant deck that I put together to play with the new card Ivy of Gleeful Spelltheif. It is a 2-mana 2/1 flyer that whenever we cast a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy, we may copy that spell and the copy targets Ivy. So she's definitely a unique card, definitely something that, we're in a place where there's not, Magecraft and things like that from like Strixhaven, though we are trying to play our fair balance of spells in our deck that target our creatures, as well as, kind of slowly disrupting what our opponent's doing. So I would say we're probably somewhere around a Bant tempo-ish style deck. Utilizing the effects of, Ivy here, as well as a new card, Vesuvian Diplomacy. This is another interesting enchantment that, it's definitely kind of clunky a little bit. It's not going to fit in every deck. It's not like one of those spells that you're going to put in every single kind of deck you're going to play that plays blue, though it is kind of a card that works very well with what we're trying to do in this deck, as it is a spell that also benefits us, that whenever we target a spell that targets a single artifact or creature we control, we get to create a token of that creature. And then the creature is not legendary, so you can create additional copies of Ivy, you can create additional copies of Ledger Shredder, Illuminator Virtuoso, the typical creatures of the deck, which is definitely pretty awesome. It's definitely something to kind of pump out creatures really, really quickly. All you need is just like a single creature plus a spell to target, and then a Vesuvian Diplomacy, and then we have a bunch of creatures out, relatively quick. This is also a pretty low curve deck. We're very low to the ground. We're playing mostly 2-drops, and then the only expensive card is a couple of Vesuvian Diplomacies at 4. So we are only playing 22 lands, and it's a mixture of Bant colors, because we're not really truly a Bant deck. We're really blue with a splash of white and green just to play a couple cards in those color forms, where most of the cards come from the blue mana source. So, most of the cards that we are playing in those other colors, outside of maybe a couple of basics, are, lands of that color. I'm not really sure if people are also playing ways to destroy land, so I feel like having a couple additional copies of a few basics of the colors, we're also splashing into is probably very good. I could also probably cut those out if we don't really need them and really think we could just add 4 copies of each of the duels. Yet again, I'm still, with most of my decks, whenever I create them, the mana base is always something that could fluctuate based on how the games go. If I feel like I'm not drawing a particular color, I'll adjust the mana base just to kind of maybe if it makes a difference when it comes to casting that. But like I said, the gist of this deck is pretty straightforward. We're playing, our about 16 creatures, I would say, which is definitely kind of on the low side. We put a lot of effort into these creatures really to hopefully carry us through the game. And then we play a bunch of spells to either protect them and or disrupt what our opponent's doing. We have things like Spell Pierce on the 1 mana to counter target non-creature spell unless control pace 2. There is a lot of, people are going to tap out for their spells and try to, play like a Liliana and stuff like that on us. Having a 1 mana counter target spell unless they pay 2 kind of thing is definitely very good there. We have a couple of make disappears as well in case we need that. And, worst case scenario, we can always sacrifice one of our tokens we generate from the Vesuvian Diplomacy to get a second copy of this. We have our protection spells like Slip Out the Back, Shore Up. We have Combat Research as a way to kind of get some tempo as well. We have a copy of Cradle of Safety here just as another interesting kind of enchantment that gives target creature +1/+1. On top of that, if it was flashed in, we get that creature also hexproof and end of turn. And pretty much every card that we are playing in this deck, benefits Ivy. So if we have one of her out and we target something else with one of these other spells, we're going to also get that same effect on Ivy, which is definitely pretty sweet. So even if we, target one of our creatures with an aura, we'll get an aura on Ivy. So it's definitely, we don't really have to target Ivy with anything. And then we can also, pump Ivy with that process. The other interesting thing here is if our opponent does the same thing, like if our opponent's playing some sort of deck that targets a creature they control with some sort of pump spell, we can also get that same effect to Ivy as well. And we can choose whether or not we want to do so. It's a May effect, which is definitely pretty awesome. There are some, it's a little clunky though, I would say, because that effect is kind of like a May. So if we fade and help one of our opponent's creatures and we have an Ivy out, the game's going to ask us, do we want to also, use that card on Ivy as well, which we typically don't want to bounce our Ivy back to our hand, unless there's some situation where we want to bounce 2 creatures back, maybe they Meat Hook Massacre or something like that, and a last-ditch effort, just want to make sure we, save our creatures just to kind of restart the following turn. But other than that, let's just dive into the game and kind of see how this goes. I've played a couple of games here and there, testing out the mana base and testing out the quantity of cards, but yet again, it's still fairly early in this build, and I have a lot of cards I have 2 of. I don't know if I want to increase or decrease, just depending on how I get matched up in the the matchmaker. And we're gonna dive into some games to kind of see. Hopefully, this deck does pretty good. Opponent goes first. We have our colors. We're missing white, but we have 3 lands. And we can play an Ivy, so I think we're okay. They're playing something green. Something graveyard related. Never punished. Let's just play the Dream Root into play tapped. We're landing. I'm kind of curious to what our opponent's combo is going to be here. Sure. I mean, I could just play Plains and then play Virtuoso, and this kind of maybe prevent them from attacking him for 1 because that's double strike. Though I do leave shields down, which is a downside here because we are tapping out. So I feel like they're going to be a deck that gets back all their fetches, is my best guess here, right? And then pumps up like a Willowgeist. I'll probably take the 1 here, actually. Sure. We're 0-1 in. We're 0-1 in. I'm going to play Yamavaya. Ooh. Let's play Spelltheif. I'll take the 1. No attacks and say go. Problem not having a second green, you know? The one downside. Sure, Shigeki. We're Shigekian. Not doing anything. So if we Tameo here, we get to draw a card. But does that do anything? Yeah, why not? We'll take action. We'll copy Tameo, give both creatures hexproof and indestructible. I'm just going to get rid of a second Ivy. And we'll do first strike damage. And then we'll do regular damage. And then we'll say go. I mean, now they have a creature, so their card's a little bit better, sure. So their combo is to play Sarah Paragon and play lands back from their graveyard. Interesting. I still feel like I'm in a good spot, though. Like, I'm not, like, behind, sure. We'll Homestead Courage. We'll take that action. I guess we'll discard a land. It'll still get +1/+1. And we'll do it again. We'll take that action. And I guess we'll still get rid of a land. And we'll swing in. And we'll pump again. We'll take that action. Just to make sure. We'll submit the Storm Chaser Drake. And now their Paragon's gone. So that's good for us. Though we do have shields down, right? Like, I don't know if there's some sort of removal. Sure. We will target. Take that action. Create a second copy. Has ward 1 now. I'll get rid of the Spell Pierce. Okay, and they scoop. We're going off. We're gaming. Opponent goes first. Our hand's, I think, keepable. We don't have technically a blue and or white source, so that's the one downside to our hand. Though our opponent did have to mulligan. So that may benefit us. We'll play Delver. We'll autopay the 1 life. So we're killing ourselves. Next turn could be like a protection turn. Alright, something Gruul. We'll reveal it. We'll flip Delver. I'll swing 3. And we'll say go. This leaves up protection, also leaves up a counter spell. Sure. Maybe they're gonna ramp. We'll auto pay the 1 life. Drake is fine. My turn. We will play this. Still hurting ourselves in the process. Hitting for 3. They're down to 14. Say go. They have a lot of mana, so, I mean, they can do a lot here. Though... Take 1 life, we'll shore up. I mean, they can still remove my, my Delver. Interesting. So they don't do anything, which is intriguing, right? They're on 10. We have 2 cards in hand. Take 1 life. Can't counter Ren. And our opponent says go. On the play, our hand's keepable. It's not great, right? We're missing green, but it's not bad. It just depends on what the matchup is. Like, a part of me doesn't want to, like, just play out a Virtuoso into a mono black deck. So we're just going to say go. If they want to invest mana here, that's perfectly fine because they have to tap black mana to actually invest into their sleeper. Our opponent sees blue-white, and they're probably like, oh, crap, it's a counter deck. Also not slamming a land. Interesting. Tap land. Got it. We will play our Virtuoso. I'm probably like, different blue-white deck. Sure. I mean, I don't mind taking the 2, right? Like, we're not in a bad spot. They could waste removal. Could play Liliana. I mean, we have... The possibilities are endless here. They could attack first and kind of see what we do. We'll shield up, I guess. And then we'll discard this. So try again. Didn't draw a land there. Little bit of a downside. We'll swing for 4. Double strike, sweet. I lose a life, I guess. Sure. I mean, they could be like 4th land, play another Meat Hook, get rid of the Virtuoso, then we Spell Pierce it. I feel like Spell Pierce is actually really good right now because they may have to commit a bunch of mana. Spell Pierce. Won't give you card advantage. And you missed a land. Interesting. We'll play second Virtuoso. They're at 14. Another land. Is it Sorin? Is it another meat hook? Do they think I have a counter spell? Sure. I don't need that in this situation, as much as that would put a lot of pressure on my opponent. Ledger Shredder is pretty good. We'll swing in for 6. And we'll take 1 life, and we'll play Ledger Shredder. Sure, they're going to try to fix their hand. Maybe discard cards? They're definitely in a rough spot, right? Like, they have to kind of clear the board out, and they don't draw land. If they play like a 3-mana spell, they're susceptible to like a Spell Pierce. If they don't put creatures on the battlefield, they're susceptible to just getting ran over next turn. If they can't remove things, they kept cards in hand. Okay, so they must have a card, right, to help them out here. They cast 2 spells. Then they... Sure. You get a blood. Second spell. We'll discard that. We'll nullify it. All right. Yeah, we swing all in. Sure, we lose a life. They take... They're down to 5. We'll say go. I mean, as long as we can keep... Sure.
Enough with the mystery.
You're gonna make me discard?
I've come for answers.
Sure, you get a life.
Sacrifices must be made.
Nope. You got removal? Kill Liliana, swing face. Makes sense. Sure, we lose another life. Liliana is dead.
A delay.
Go.
Nothing more.
Sack blood. Draw a card. Probably looking for an answer. I'm not sure what else they could have here. Land is fine, gaining a life. Good. I mean, they have to put 2 things on the battlefield. Sure.
I take no joy in the slaughter. You can deal with my servant. I'm busy.
Yes, we'll slip out the back that. And swing. Beat Rakdos. On the play, it's a very hurting hand full of stuff, but I feel like it's a good hand. Because we drew what we needed, kind of. Like we have like 4 creatures, which is good, right? You can put a board presence out here. We have Ivy, which is another good card. We'll auto pay. The one thing I will note is I have to watch the tapper when it comes to the pain lands, just because sometimes the auto tapper doesn't like to tap those. Sure. Look at this vigilance. Pay one. Also gets a counter, so now it's at a cutout or whatever the card's called. Sure. 18. Need one more land here, and this would be clutch. We'll take one and remove that. Not what we wanted. We'll swing. And then we'll follow that up with our Ivy, which is going to hurt, as we didn't draw any other land. I'll take the 2. You can kill it. It's fine. I have another. You could Lily. Sure. All right. We're gaming. We'll just Homestead Courage and take 1. I mean, we're pretty much... Our opponent is not really killing us, right? We're kind of killing ourselves at this point, because we haven't drawn like a single land outside of what we have. This is also a position I didn't want to put myself in, because now I only have 1 creature, so it's like I can just easily get Lilied here, make a sack. It's the one downside to having like a ton of stuff to do, but not enough land to do it. I mean, they could just evolve. Sure. And we're doing it again. We're gaming. We'll block. There is pause. I don't think they have a cutout, though. We'll gain 2 life, give this indestructible. And now we're out of, like, gas. I'm in such a tough spot here because I didn't draw that land. It's like if they draw a Lily, I'm like SOL. If they don't play Lily, then I'm fine. Oh, you know what? What am I doing? I can just slip out the back. Even if they Lily here, right? I can just slip out the back and they minus it for no reason. I'll take 2. Are we removing? Sure. Sure. Going all out. My turn. We'll just slip this out. Take 1. Go up to that. And then we go to 6. Perfect. And we are back. So, I mean, overall, I think the deck played fairly well. I went 5-2 in the matches I played. I don't know how many I'm going to fit into this video, but overall, the deck performed fairly well. There were a couple games where I kind of got either land flooded or mana screwed in one way or the other. One of the games I actually didn't even end up playing, my opponent never showed up, I guess, which is definitely kind of interesting. Though I do think I did enough to kind of show off what the deck can do. We really didn't get to go off with Ivy a bunch of times. And we didn't really get to use the diplomacy when we did draw it. I think if anything, when I did draw it, I didn't actually need it to win. So it was one of those things I just kind of put it to the bottom or just didn't even cash, just because I think at that point in the matchups that I did have it, it was just not needed to get the victory. The one thing, like I said, the one thing I need to work on is I think the mana base is probably the trickiest part of it. The last game that I did was, I got myself down kind of low. Like my opponent really didn't do anything to me. It was all myself that was, killing myself. I think I ended up pulling out the victory, which was pretty good. We definitely got a decent balance of various decks, as we got a little bit of Rakdos, got a little bit of mono black, a little bit of Selesnya, a little bit of Gruul, and also a little bit of mono red, which is definitely good. We didn't end up playing like all the same decks when I played this deck, so it's definitely shows off what the deck can do. This is definitely one of those decks where you kind of have to look for your paths of opportunity to really attack. Right, you want to tap out early, just kind of get some sort of board presence, but you don't want to keep yourself tapped out if you have protection spells. So you have to kind of look for those avenues to cast certain creatures and or get a board presence is definitely the tricky part in the early game. But if you can kind of get at least 1 or 2 creatures out, I feel like you'll do very well, and then have openings to play like your protection spells and stuff like that. I think definitely will benefit you if you decide to play this deck. If you guys want to know where this deck list is, I have it linked in the description below if you want to check it out for yourself. I would say it's fairly inexpensive, and that's definitely something to say in the current meta. A lot of the top decks, I would say, are kind of on the expensive side, right? There are a lot of rares and mythics that are necessary to really make this work. I think this one is more of a balance of uncommons and commons, and there's some rares and mythics in it. Most of them come from the mana base, as well as a couple in the main deck. But with that being said, if you liked the video, hit that like button. Definitely helps out a lot. If you're new here, you want to post new videos like this one here on the channel, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Just want to give a special shout out to the channel members here on my YouTube channel. You can also become a channel member yourself down below the video, hitting that join button. It definitely helps out a lot, and I just appreciate you guys for your support.